Imagine a Belgium gripped by fear as a mysterious gang known as the Brabant Killers wreaked havoc across the country. From 1982 to 1985, they committed brutal robberies and murders, leaving a nation traumatized and law enforcement baffled. Nearly 40 years later, their identities remain a mystery, with theories ranging from corrupt insiders to foreign interference. Today we explore this infamous case and how it's brought to life in the series 1985. The unresolved case of the Brabant Killers remains Belgium's most perplexing criminal mystery to this day, evoking both fear and intrigue as the nation recalls the brutal crimes that struck fear in communities during the mid-1980s. For a few years, an unidentified group of violent offenders unleashed havoc across Belgium, attacking with chilling randomness, leaving both authorities and citizens at a loss. Their actions appeared indiscriminate, and with each brutal attack, the level of violence intensified. The Brabant Killers didn't merely commit robberies, they murdered without hesitation, often targeting everyday locations like supermarkets and small businesses, making nowhere feel safe. This elusive gang, known in French as Les Tueurs du Brabant and in Dutch as De Ben van Nijvel, earned their infamy by terrorizing Belgium through a spree of killings and robberies that ultimately claimed 28 lives, including those of children, and injured over 40 others. The group's motives have remained unclear, as has any solid evidence leading to their capture or even identification. Despite significant efforts by Belgian authorities, no one has ever been formally charged with these heinous crimes, and the case remains unsolved. Their sudden disappearance only deepened the mystery, leaving behind a legacy of horror and unanswered questions that continues to haunt the nation. Today, the story of the Brabant Killers has been revisited through the television series 1985, which dramatizes their violent exploits and provides a lens into one of Belgium's darkest periods. Who were the Brabant Killers? To this day, their identities remain unknown, and not a single member has been captured or definitively linked to these violent acts. The motives behind the group's horrifying crimes are just as unclear, with the initial police investigation into the case criticized as disorganized, riddled with errors, and frustratingly ineffective. This lack of clarity, however, has not deterred people from developing countless theories about who these killers were and why they unleashed such terror. Speculation surrounding the gang has become almost legendary. Some believe the killers were simply brutal criminals seeking fast cash, while others proposed that they might have been members of extremist factions, even corrupt law enforcement officers or agents from foreign powers carrying out secret operations under the guise of robbery. Nearly 4 decades later, these murders remain shrouded in a fog of conspiracy theories, making the Brabant Killers seem as elusive and mythical as creatures of the night. Despite the scarcity of factual information, the Brabant Killers' story has continued to inspire Belgian writers and filmmakers, becoming the backbone for new creative explorations into the country's darker history. The latest such endeavor is 1985, an ambitious 8-part television series crafted by screenwriter Willem Wallen and director Wouter Boeven. The show follows Mark and Frankie, 2 lifelong friends who begin their careers with Belgium's former national police force, the Gendarmerie, and Frankie's sister Vicky, who pursues a law degree at Brussels VUB University. Somehow, whether by accident or design, all 3 characters find themselves entwined with the Brabant Killers. For many people, the Brabant Killers almost feel like a myth, an unbelievable story laden with wild conspiracy theories and shady underworld connections, director Boeven notes. There are tales of gangsters supposedly under protection from high-ranking officials, cover-ups, and corruption within the gendarmerie. The lack of information has left space for a variety of interpretations. Our series doesn't claim to reveal the truth, but it does address themes that feel as urgent today as they were back then, especially the polarized atmosphere between left and right-wing politics and the activities of extremist groups. If one thing was clear, it was that the Brabant Killers acted with a deeply radical agenda. Through the perspectives of Mark, Frankie, and Vicky, The series not only reconstructs the unfolding events, but also dives into the personal lives of the protagonists, showcasing how they grapple with a world increasingly divided by political and social tensions. While viewers will uncover details about the Brabant killers along the way, what adds depth is that the series isn't solely focused on them. It's about these young people navigating a polarized society. Boeven explains. It's a small story that opens up to reveal much bigger issues. Since much of the Brabant killers' story remains obscured by unanswered questions, the television series 1985 doesn't quite fit the mold of true crime. However, it offers a raw portrayal of real and violent crimes that shocked Belgium. Screenwriter Willem Wallin meticulously drew from the official findings of a parliamentary investigation committee that had closely examined the Brabant killers' case. Historical figures like Madani Danny Bohush and Robert Beyer, who are woven into the narrative, are men who were at the heart of Belgium's criminal underworld during this turbulent era. While it's technically a fictional show, we've done our best to stick closely to actual events, Boeven explains. Although Bohush and Beyer were never proven to be part of the Brabant killers, strong suspicions surrounded them, and they were indeed convicted of other serious crimes during that period. The period from 1981 to 1985 saw the nation gripped by terror and suspicion as the killers struck seemingly without motive, murdering and injuring countless victims, often in public spaces during the day. A shocking wave of brutal assaults on Delhaize supermarkets left Belgium in a state of despair as men, women, and even children were gunned down during these ruthless raids. In one scene, a character reflects the public's horror by vowing never to shop at Delhaize again, a sentiment that many Belgians shared at the time. The gang's final known assault happened in the chilling winter of 1985 when an attack on a Delhaize supermarket in Aalst became the bloodiest incident linked to the Brabant killers, claiming 8 lives. And then, just as suddenly as they'd arrived, the killers vanished without a trace, leaving a legacy of terror and questions that remain unanswered. The motives of the Brabant killers have been fiercely debated. The group's loots were surprisingly small, leading many to believe that the attacks were not purely for financial gain. The robbery in Aalst, for example, netted around 200,000 Belgian francs, about 5,000 euros, and some checks from the heist were later found discarded in the Brussels-Charleroi Canal. Such meager returns, combined with the high death toll, fuel suspicions that these acts were not typical crimes of greed but instead could have been politically motivated, perhaps even protected by individuals in power. Yet, no definitive proof has surfaced to confirm these theories. During this time, Belgium was a battleground of ideological and criminal warfare. Alongside the Brabant killers, the Communist Combatant Cells, CCC, a violent urban guerrilla group, carried out bombings targeting NATO facilities and multinational corporations. The notorious Hemers gang also conducted a string of high-profile cash transport robberies and even staged the dramatic kidnapping of Prime Minister Patrick van den Beinets. As Boeven puts it, the criminal scene in the 80s was extremely active. This constant upheaval created an atmosphere of fear, suspicion, and unresolved tension. 1985 captures this mood of menace and paranoia, allowing viewers to feel the anxiety that permeated Belgian society at the time. We don't reveal who's behind the killer's masks, except in one pivotal moment, because, ultimately, that's the essence of our story, says Boeven. The series thus remains faithful to the mystery, letting viewers immerse themselves in the eerie, unanswered questions that continue to haunt Belgium decades later. Set against the politically charged and turbulent backdrop of 1980s Belgium, the series 1985 presents not just a story of societal unrest, but also a poignant narrative about friendship, choices, and the moral paths we take. At its core, the series centers on 2 close friends whose paths diverge as they face pivotal life choices. For me, no one is truly the villain, explains Boeven. One character is able to make better choices due to the stability of his upbringing, while the other is drawn down darker paths, seeking the affirmation and fatherly affection he lacked as a child. This nuanced portrayal of good and bad decisions adds depth, illustrating how much of our choices are influenced by personal histories and unmet emotional needs. The show creators delve deeper, asking what factors push individuals toward dangerous paths, whether it's extremism, crime, or addiction. What leads someone to reach a point where they begin making destructive choices? Bouvin reflects, drawing parallels to modern issues, asking, who are these people storming places like the U.S. Capitol, and how did they end up there? Through this exploration, the series becomes a mirror to contemporary society, showing how the pull toward radicalization and harmful decisions remains timeless. As viewers watch the struggles and choices of 1985's characters, they're also reminded of the present. The echoes of political polarization, the resurgence of extremist factions, and the looming threats from organized fringe groups in society are all reminiscent of the atmosphere that fueled the events in 1985. Bouvin notes, very early on, we noticed how the themes of the series resonated with current realities. From individuals who train in isolated areas to groups with dangerous beliefs, the haunting parallels make it clear that these issues aren't just relics of the past. Today, we have a war nearby, driven by authoritarian decisions, which only brings home how little has truly changed. This notion that we live in a supposedly calmer, more organized world is often deceptive, Bouvin argues. We like to believe that the system is more efficient now, that society is safer, but the cracks are still visible, he says. The creators hope to inspire a conversation around these lingering societal tensions, making audiences reflect on whether things have really improved. Although the story of the Brabant killers carries an unmistakably Belgian essence, director Bouvin believes its core could resonate anywhere in the world. If you study history, you'll see that radical groups have emerged in many places, from Italy to Ireland, he explains. The biggest distinction with Belgium, though, is that here, no one ever took responsibility for the attacks. This unclaimed series of crimes added a hauntingly mysterious layer, making Belgium's experience uniquely unsettling. The production itself mirrors Belgium's diversity and complexity. Produced through a collaborative effort between the Flemish and Wallon public broadcasters, 1985 was filmed across Belgium's 3 regions, with a cast that includes both French and Dutch-speaking actors. Co-productions often bring additional challenges, Bouvin notes, but in this case, it enriched the project. The story itself isn't just about Flanders, Wallonia, or Brussels, it's Belgian to its very core. Bouvin valued the chance to work across linguistic lines, welcoming Wallon and Brussels actors to a project that celebrates a multi-layered Belgian identity. This collaboration was more than just logistical for Bouvin, it was a unique opportunity to connect with creative talent across the country. Even though Belgium is a small nation, we don't often get to work with or fully understand one another across language borders, he says. Through 1985, he hopes for more co-productions that bridge these gaps, ideally centering on stories that have genuine cultural relevance for all Belgians. The Brabant Killers story remains etched into Belgium's national psyche, even among younger viewers who were not alive during that period. It's something that, as a country, we will carry with us, Bouvin reflects. In the future, younger generations might watch this series and find a window into a complicated chapter of our past. Over time, the era will likely feel even more exotic than it does now, and I hope it becomes a fixture in understanding our shared history. He sees the series as more than a story, it's a cultural artifact that could help Belgians understand this dark period for years to come. The characters at the heart of 1985, Mark, Frankie, and Vicky, make the series even more relatable. Their journey not only serves as a window into the turmoil of Belgium's past, but also invites viewers to see themselves in the lives of these 3 characters. These aren't just personalities from a history book, everyone can find a piece of themselves in Mark, Frankie, or Vicky, Bouvin explains. This relatability adds a human touch, giving audiences a personal stake in one of Belgium's darkest chapters. While the series might not act as positive publicity, it undeniably places Belgium on the international map, allowing the world to engage with this complex period in a new way. The depth of the story and its Belgian flair make it a uniquely compelling exploration of a history that is both deeply national and universally relevant.